It was supposed to be the perfect weekend getaway, the kind of break from the city that everyone dreams about. Just a cozy little cabin in the woods, far away from the stress of daily life. The kind of place where you can relax, breathe, and escape. And for Jessica, that's exactly what it seemed to be at first. She'd been looking forward to this for weeks. A long weekend of solitude, reading books by the fire, maybe taking a walk through the woods. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to get away from the noise, the rush, and the endless grind. When she found the cabin, it was an old, quaint thing. Small, secluded, and exactly what she wanted. The photos online were beautiful, showcasing a charming little house surrounded by tall, ancient trees. Peaceful. Perfect. But as soon as she arrived, something felt wrong. The trees towered over the cabin, their branches weaving together so tightly that the sunlight barely touched the ground. The air was thick, almost suffocating, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Jessica brushed it off, thinking it was just the unfamiliarity of the place. She unpacked her bags, set her things down, and tried to settle in. The first night, though, that was when things started to get strange. It started with the whispers. At first, she thought it was just the wind rustling through the trees. But the whispers grew louder. Faint voices, barely audible, just on the edge of her hearing. At first, she thought it was just her imagination. After all, she was alone in a secluded cabin in the woods. But then she heard her name. Jessica! She froze. The room went cold, and the hair on the back of her neck stood up. She tried to ignore it, telling herself it was nothing, just the wind, maybe an animal. But then the knocking started, a single sharp knock on the door, and then another, and another. 3 knocks followed by a long silence. Jessica stood frozen in place. Who would be out here? It was miles to the nearest neighbor, and no one had been on the road when she arrived. She cautiously opened the door, her heart pounding. There was no one there, just the dark, empty forest stretching out before her. The air smelled damp, earthy, unsettling. She closed the door quickly, bolting it behind her, and tried to convince herself it was nothing. But deep down, she felt the weight of something watching her. That night's sleep didn't come easy. She tossed and turned, every little sound in the house making her jump. The whispering was still there, distant and low, but it felt closer now, like it was coming from the walls, from the floorboards beneath her. And then she heard footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps. They came from above, the attic. Jessica's heart raced as she slowly stood up, her legs trembling. The footsteps grew louder, closer, as if something or someone was moving above her, pacing back and forth. She didn't want to look, but she couldn't stop herself. With shaking hands, she grabbed the flashlight and crept up the stairs, her breath shallow, her chest tight. The attic door creaked open, revealing only darkness. But as she shone the light around, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A shadow, a figure, just standing there in the corner of the attic. It was tall, its features obscured, but there was something wrong about it, like it was waiting for her, watching her. Suddenly the air grew even colder, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Jessica couldn't breathe. She turned to flee, but before she could reach the door, the figure moved. Fast. So fast it was like it was right behind her, its breath hot on her neck. She slammed the door behind her and bolted downstairs, but when she looked back, the attic door was open, and the shadow was gone. The next morning, Jessica decided to leave. She couldn't stay here any longer. Something was wrong with that house, something that was beyond her understanding. But as she packed her things, she noticed something strange. On the wall, near the door, was a faint mark, a symbol she hadn't seen before. It was carved into the wood, deep and jagged, as if it had been there for years. Jessica's heart skipped a beat as she stared at it, feeling the same suffocating weight in her chest that she had felt the night before. And then it hit her. The symbol wasn't just any symbol. It was a warning. She needed to leave. Now. But as she reached for the door, the whispers returned. Only this time they weren't whispers. They were voices, clear, loud. Jessica spun around, panic seizing her chest. The shadows in the corners of the room began to move, writhing and twisting like they were alive. She screamed, but no sound escaped her lips. The door wouldn't open. She pushed and pulled, but it wouldn't budge. The last thing she saw before the darkness swallowed her was the figure from the attic, standing in the doorway, its face now visible, but its eyes were empty, black, hollow. It started with the scratching, faint, almost imperceptible at first. Just a soft skittering noise coming from above the ceiling of Daniel's bedroom. He was 17, old enough to rationalize that it was probably just mice or an old pipe settling in the attic. At least that's what he told himself. But as the nights passed, the sound grew louder, more distinct, clawing, dragging, breathing, and worst of all, whispers. Daniel lay in bed, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to the slow, deliberate movement above him. It didn't sound like mice anymore. It sounded heavier, more deliberate, like something waiting. His parents dismissed it, barely acknowledging his concerns. Old houses creak, his father said. Probably just a raccoon, his mother suggested. We'll check it out this weekend. But Daniel knew better. And by the time the weekend arrived, something else happened. One night as Daniel lay in bed, his bedroom door creaked open on its own. The hallway light spilled into the darkness, and from where he lay, he could just make out the attic hatch in the hallway ceiling. It was open. A feeling of dread curled in his stomach as he sat up, heart hammering in his chest. The attic had been shut for years. His parents never used it. And yet now, the wooden panel hung slightly ajar, revealing a gaping black void above. And then, something moved. A soft, scuffling sound, followed by the slow creak of wood, as if something was shifting its weight just beyond the opening. Daniel forced himself to breathe. Maybe it was the wind, or maybe his dad had finally checked the attic and forgotten to close it. But the thought didn't sit right with him. Not when, just a moment later, he heard it, a whisper, low, guttural, not coming from inside the attic, but from the ceiling directly above his bed. Daniel. His breath caught in his throat. He froze, unable to move, unable to think. The voice was raspy, unnatural, and disturbingly familiar. It sounded like his own, but warped, stretched, wrong. The next morning, he confronted his parents again. "Please," he begged. "Just check the attic. I heard something up there." His father sighed, grabbed a flashlight, and pulled down the attic ladder. Dust rained down from the old wooden panels as the hatch creaked open. Daniel held his breath as his father climbed up and disappeared into the darkness. A few minutes passed. Then came the scuffling of feet, the beam of the flashlight sweeping across the attic's interior. A pause. Then, "There's nothing here," his father called down. "Just old boxes and dust." Daniel's stomach twisted. He knew what he heard. He knew something had been up there, watching, whispering. And when his father climbed back down and shut the hatch, Daniel's blood ran cold. Because he swore, for just a split second before the door closed, he saw something. Two small glowing eyes peering from the darkness. That night, Daniel tried to stay awake. He turned on his lamp and kept his ears open, listening for any sign of movement. Hours passed, and nothing happened. Maybe his father was right. Maybe it really was just his imagination. But just as he began to drift off, the noise returned. A soft tapping. Not above him this time, but from inside his closet. Daniel's body went rigid. He hadn't opened his closet all night. He hadn't touched it. The tapping turned into scratching. Slow, methodical, as if whatever was inside knew he was listening. And then, in that same familiar broken voice, it whispered, "Daniel, let me out." His blood turned ice cold. His breath came in shallow gasps as he stared at the closet door. It was closed, but somehow he felt something staring back at him from the other side. That night he couldn't sleep. He lay there, waiting, listening. Hours passed. Then, thump. A single deliberate sound above him. Not scratching, not skittering. Footsteps. And then, slowly, the attic hatch began to open. Daniel's breath hitched. He stared in horror as the wooden panel slid downward, revealing the darkness beyond. And something crawled out. It moved unnaturally, limbs bending the wrong way, its body too thin, too elongated. And worst of all, its face. It was him, or at least a twisted, grotesque version of him. A hollow reflection. Its face was stretched into a horrible grin, eyes wide and gleaming. It opened its mouth, and in his own voice it whispered, "Daniel, let me in." Daniel screamed. His parents found him the next morning, curled in the corner of his room, shaking, the attic hatch wide open above him. There was no sign of anything inside. No footprints, no claw marks, just dust. But Daniel knew the truth, because now every night, when he closes his eyes, he hears it. A whisper, software, patient, waiting. "Let me in." The first disappearance didn't raise much concern. A drifter, passing through town, vanished without a trace. No family to miss him, no one to ask questions. The second, a young woman who had recently moved in, was written off as a runaway. But by the time the third person went missing, the town knew something was wrong. Daniel, a journalist working for the local paper, had lived in Hollow Creek his entire life. He had covered small-town stories, local fairs, minor crimes, and the occasional scandal. But this was something different. And when he got a tip about strange remains being found near the outskirts of town, he knew he had to investigate. The police reports had been vague. The remains were not bones, not decayed bodies, but something far worse. Skin, completely intact, completely empty. As if the people had been peeled away from the inside. Daniel sat in his car, staring at the field where the latest victim had been found. It was late, the streetlights barely illuminating the area beyond the trees. The wind whistled through the branches, rustling the dry grass. He could still hear the sheriff's words in his head. "We don't talk about it." They had brushed him off, told him to let it go. But Daniel couldn't. Not when he had seen the photographs, hollow, sagging shapes of human skin draped over tree branches like discarded clothing. Something was happening in Hollow Creek, and he was going to find out what. That night, Daniel started his investigation at the abandoned house on the edge of town. The last victim, a man named Henry Carter, had been seen walking toward it just before he disappeared. With only a flashlight and a growing sense of unease, Daniel pushed open the rotting door. The air inside was damp, thick with the scent of mold and decay. He moved cautiously through the rooms, the wooden floor creaking beneath his weight. Then, a noise. A soft, wet shuffling sound from upstairs. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Slowly, he stepped onto the staircase, flashlight trembling in his grip. As he ascended, the sound grew louder. A slow, methodical dragging. When he reached the top, he turned toward the noise. And then he saw it. A figure stood at the end of the hallway, half hidden in the shadows. It was tall, impossibly thin, its skin stretched too tightly over its bones. The worst part, the skin didn't belong to it. It was wearing someone else's face. Daniel's stomach turned as the creature took a step forward. Its fingers were too long, its nails jagged and blackened. It tilted its head, lips pulling back in an unnatural grin, exposing rows of small, uneven teeth. It whispered in a voice that wasn't its own. "You'd fit nicely." Daniel didn't think. He turned and ran, stumbling down the stairs as the thing let out a sharp, inhuman shriek. He hit the floor hard but scrambled to his feet, bolting toward the door. Behind him, he heard the sickening sound of skin peeling. He didn't look back. Bursting into the night, he ran until his lungs burned, not stopping until he reached his car. He locked the doors, hands shaking as he tried to catch his breath. His flashlight lay on the passenger seat, illuminating something he hadn't noticed before. A patch of skin stuck to his sleeve, and it wasn't his. The following days, Daniel became obsessed. He dug through old records, looking for any sign of similar disappearances. And what he found chilled him to the bone. Hollow Creek had a history. Every few decades, people vanished under mysterious circumstances, their bodies never found. Only the skin remained. The town knew. The police knew. And yet no one spoke about it. Daniel started noticing things. Figures standing too still in the distance, shadows moving when they shouldn't, and the whispers, soft, barely audible, but always there. "You'd fit nicely." He stopped sleeping, stopped eating. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it. The thing in the house, the thing wearing a stolen face. And then, the disappearances started again. Daniel knew he had to end it. He returned to the abandoned house, this time with a camera and a knife. The door creaked open just as it had before, and the air inside was wrong. It was waiting for him. The skin-wearing creature stood at the top of the stairs, its stolen face shifting as if it didn't quite fit. It took a step forward, and Daniel held his ground. "I know what you are," he said, his voice steady despite the terror curling in his stomach. "And I'm not afraid of you." The creature paused, its lips twisting into an unnatural grin. "You should be." The lights flickered, the walls groaned, and suddenly, Daniel felt something behind him. He turned just in time to see another figure lunging from the shadows, its skin mismatched, stitched together from different bodies. It reached for him, nails slicing through his jacket as he barely dodged in time. Daniel didn't think, he ran, bolting out of the house, down the road, through the trees. He could hear them chasing him, their laughter hollow, hungry. But he didn't stop, not until he reached town. Daniel left Hollow Creek the next morning. He didn't pack, didn't say goodbye, just drove. But even as the town faded in the distance, he knew it wasn't over. Because when he glanced in the rearview mirror, he saw something sitting in his back seat, smiling and wearing his own face. The skin collector had chosen its next victim,